Happy Sabbath. How are you all? Did you enjoy your week? Tonight, I continue to pray that the Lord will continue to watch over you and your family, and that He will bless you with love, joy, and peace. Before we get on to chapter 33, I would like to discuss the previous chapter story concerning Jacob's wrestling with the angel, because it has a deeper lesson for us modern day believers. The wrestling with angel not only was Jacob's experience, but it will be the experience of the follower of Jesus Christ toward the end of time. The prophet Jeremiah, in a vision given by God, looking down to the end time, said, "We have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. All faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." Jeremiah 35:7. Since his ascension to heaven, Christ has been working as the heavenly high priest, a mediator between man and God, pleading his blood on behalf of us, the repentant believers. But during this time of Jacob's trouble, just before his second coming, Christ will leave his high priestly position. His work of intercessory will be completed. That means there will be no one there in the heavenly sanctuary to forgive sinners' sin. Therefore, those who believe in Christ's saving blood and had already asked for forgiveness while Jesus was still doing his intercessory work will be saved. And those who didn't will be lost. And this is what it says in Revelation 22:11. "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still." Revelation 22:11. After Jesus left his high priestly position, the protective, restraining Spirit of God will be withdrawn from the earth, and there will be imminent danger for God's people. The wicked will be seeking to harm God's people, just like what Jacob experienced years ago by the threat of death of his angry brother. As Jacob wrestled all night for deliverance from the hand of Esau, so the righteous believers will be crying out to God for deliverance from the enemies that surround them. Moreover, there will be mental and emotional anguish during those days, just like the narrative of Jacob. Satan accused Jacob before the angel of God, claiming that he had the right to cause harm to Jacob because he has sinned, and he instigated Esau to kill Jacob. And so, the entire night, while Jacob was wrestling with the angel, Satan kept reminding him of his sin, that he had already repented and forgiven. Satan's intent was to discourage Jacob so that he would break his dependency on God. But during this most distressful time, Jacob got hold of the angel, Christ, and wouldn't let him leave. Tearfully, he pleaded with Christ to bless him, and he answered his prayer. Why did Christ allow Satan to discourage Jacob? He was testing Jacob's faith in this trial. Jacob triumphed because although he was discouraged, but he would not let go of the angel. When his guilt pressed upon him, he remembered his experience at Bethel, and he remembered God's mercy all these 20 years and his forgiveness of his sin. God's people will have similar experience during these days. Their final struggle is with the powers of evil. Their faith will be tested. If they are dependent and trusting God's grace, they will persevere. They will rest their confidence in God's power to deliver them. If they are repentant of their sins and Christ's righteousness had covered their guilt, even Satan's terrifying threat of harm and reminders of their hopeless case, they will remember the greatness of God's mercy and their own sincere repentance. They will quote God's promises of salvation for repentant sinners. Their faith will not fail, even though their prayers are not immediately answered. They will continue to seize on the strength of God, as Jacob did by the Jabbok River. And like Jacob, they will say, I will not let you go, except you bless me. And this verse in Luke 18:7 said, this is what God promised. He said, shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him? Though he bear long with them, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Now let's go on to Genesis chapter 33, beginning verse 1. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. He put the servant wives and the children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then Jacob went on ahead. As he approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. When Jacob saw Esau and the 400 men approaching, he divided his entourage again. He showed his preference for Joseph and Rachel, Rachel being his favorite wife. He put them last, the safest spot. When Esau approached, Jacob took no chances. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times. This is an action of acknowledgement and respect for someone in high position, usually for king. Verse 4. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. Esau's greeting was totally unexpected. Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck. There was kissing and crying, totally emotionally demonstrative. A most warm, affectionate, eager greeting. Jacob expected revenge from Esau, or if not revenge, then heavy bargaining and appeasement. But God answered Jacob's prayer. Esau had a change of heart. Verse 5. Then Esau looked at the women and children and asked, who are these people with you? These are the children God has graciously given to me, your servant, Jacob replied. And then the servant wives came forward with their children and bowed before him. Next came Leah with her children, and they bowed before him. Finally, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed before him. One by one, Jacob's family introduced themselves and paid their respect to Esau, starting with the servant wives and then the children, then Leah and her children, and finally Rachel and Joseph. We can see here that Jacob was organizing his family according to his partiality and favoritism. Verse 8. And what were all the flocks and herds I met as I came? Esau asked. Jacob replied, "They are a gift, my lord, to ensure your friendship." "My brother, I have plenty," Esau answered. "Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, "No, if I have found favor with you, please accept this gift from me. And what a relief to see your friendly smile. It is like seeing the face of God. Please take this gift I have brought you, for God has been very gracious to me. I have more than enough." And because Jacob insisted, Esau finally accepted the gift. "Well," Esau said, "let's be going. I will lead the way." Jacob was so worried and afraid that brother Esau would take revenge and harm him and his family. Before God intervened, actually, Esau was planning to destroy Jacob, according to the book Patriarchs and Prophets. Instead of holding the grudge and hatred, Esau was excited to his brother and his family because God had intervened. We observe how Jacob was planning and giving instruction to his servant and how to appease and defend himself and his family. But at the end, his plans and preparation became pointless because God was the one behind changing Esau's heart. Esau greeted them with welcoming arms, and his 400 men are here now to safeguard Jacob's final stage of journey. Once again, Jacob is portrayed as one who has gone to great lengths to secure his own well-being, but whose efforts have proved pointless. Jacob schemed and planned, but God has his own plan and made Jacob's plan worthless. When Esau wanted to escort Jacob and family the rest of the way, Jacob replied, "You can see, my lord, that some of the children are very young, and the flocks and herds have their young too. If they are driven too hard, even for one day, all the animals could die. Please, my lord, go ahead of your servant. We will follow slowly, at a pace that is comfortable for the livestock and the children. I will meet you at Seir." Esau offered to escort Jacob and his family all the way home, but Jacob turned down the offer. Perhaps he was afraid Esau might change his mind later, or he was speaking truthfully. He didn't want to trouble Esau and his men. Esau seemed genuinely warm and accepting of Jacob, but Jacob was still hesitant and wouldn't let go of his guard. Another interesting observation: Jacob was intending to return to Succoth, but he told his brother that he'll meet him at Seir. Why? He was still fearful of Esau, so he was being polite and not contradictory. Well, at the end of this story, the brothers would live apart from each other the rest of their lives. Let's move on to verse 15. "All right," Esau said, "but at least let me assign some of my men to guide and protect you." Jacob responded, "That's not necessary. It's enough that you've received me warmly, my lord." So Esau turned around and started back to Seir that same day. Jacob, on the other hand, traveled on to Succoth. There he built himself a house and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was named Succoth, which means shelters. Esau returned southward home to Seir, and Jacob went northwest to Succoth. Although Jacob and Esau had reconciled, deep down Jacob was still afraid. Moreover, God had instructed Jacob to return to Canaan and not Seir. Verse 18. Later, having traveled all the way from Padan Aram, Jacob arrived safely at the town of Shechem in the land of Canaan. There he set up camp outside the town. Jacob bought the plot of land where he camped from the family of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And there he built an altar and named it El Elohi Israel. Seems like Jacob only stayed in Succoth for a very short time. And then he continued his journey westward to Shechem. Later on, back to Hebron, where Isaac was, the promised land. When he arrived at Shechem, he purchased a piece of land from the Hamor family with 100 pieces of silver. And then, just like Abraham, he didn't forget to build an altar to worship God. The word El Elohi Israel means God, the God of Israel. Jacob identifies the God worshipped at this altar as the one whom he had encountered, the one whom had blessed him, and the one who had changed his name. In conclusion, what does this narrative tell us about God? God does not neglect the details in protecting his children because he is a God who keeps his promise. When Esau, journeying north to meet Jacob with his 400 men, his intent was to harm him. But God gave him a dream. In the dream, perhaps like a movie, Esau was shown Jacob running away from home, grieving for the death of his mother, and then returning home, accompanied by the angels of God. This dream changed Esau's plan, and he told his men the dream and God's command of not to harm his brother Jacob, because God was with him. So number 2, what does this narrative tell us about us human? The story tells of the natural human response in time of danger, in time of fear, of distress. They try to plan and giving instruction to rearrange things, attempting to avoid danger. But at the end, it was God who intervenes and saves the day. It also tells us that men do not know how to forgive, and being magnanimous and loving do not come naturally. It is through the power of God that brings about changes. And that's why the story did not end with killing and destruction, but ended with forgiveness and reconciliation. Number 3, how shall we live as a follower of God? To live peaceably, we must sustain our connection with God. The Bible said Christ is the vine, and we are the branches. When the branch severs from the vine, it will not produce fruit. We know the Bible talks about fruit. It is talking about the fruit of the Spirit. From the fruit of the Spirit, we know there's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. With these fruits, there will not be strife or hatred, right? Happy Sabbath.